Hey, this is Lance with Autism Playbook. This is Able Accounts Part 2. So, if you're here, it's because you watched Part 1 and you feel like there's some benefit to you and your child with autism in an Able account. Again, the two major benefits I identified or scenarios I identified is if you're going to invest for the long haul. So, if you're going to invest a certain amount of money for a long enough time horizon that you're comfortable putting money in stocks and bonds and getting a decent return and getting tax-free earnings. That's one reason. A subset of that is if you're already investing in 529. Everything with Able accounts appear to have the same benefits of 529 as far as education, but are much broader in being able to use for a variety of disability expenses, which include education. So that's kind of the one bucket you're going to invest for the long haul, or you already are in a 529 college savings account. And then the other bucket, again, was if you're going to spend the money short term, but you live in a state that offers you a state income tax deduction for investing in an Able account. So then, in that case, you're going to put it in something safe short term, and you're going to spend that money, on a regular basis, but you'll get a state income tax deduction. So maybe you've got 5,000 of expenses next year, and you go ahead and save that money up this year and get a deduction in your state for that. So those are kind of the two things I identify that, in my opinion, make sense to have an Able account. So just to look again, Able accounts are run by specific states. About half the states have them. This list here. And the things I'm looking for when I'm picking one of these, and that's the point of this part 2, is to help you pick the specific state program that you're going to open. Are investment option fees. So they take out of state residence, conveniences like debit cards, minimums, that kind of thing. Again, this website is a really good resource. I'm actually going to hop out there right now and show you an example. So this is Tennessee. Spoiler alert, I'm going to highly recommend Tennessee if you don't have an income tax deduction in your state, if you're looking for an out-of-state plan. Things I'm looking for is kind of who's involved. If I see Vanguard, I'm always kind of excited. They're really awesome. But from what I've seen, a lot of great investment companies are participating in these Able accounts for different states. And then just flipping through, does this program offer enrollment to out-of-state residents? Tennessee does. So check, we can invest there. Is there an annual fee to maintain the account? Tennessee is no. I'll tell you, almost every Able account, and I think everyone but Tennessee does have an annual fee. Most are around $45. So Tennessee saves you $45 a year, which over many years is a number. And keep flipping through. Is there a debit or credit card purchasing card option? Tennessee is no. I don't love that. This is the only kind of downside to Tennessee to me, but I'm not really worried about this because I don't live in Tennessee. I'm not going to get, and Tennessee doesn't offer an income tax deduction. I'm investing for the long haul. So I don't really need the convenience of a debit purchasing card because this money is going to sit there for a very long time. And then the other is how many investment options. Tennessee has 14. Most states have about 6. Again, more isn't necessarily better, but just in digging into Tennessee's options, I like what I saw there. And then are there fees associated with investment choices? So funds typically always have fees. Most of the states, I'm seeing a good range. And let's just flip here. This is some other states I may recommend, Nebraska and Rhode Island. They're running about 0.34 to 0.38 on the Rhode Island side and a bunch of other states. And so the plan I was looking at Tennessee was actually 0.35. So Tennessee's right in line there. So Tennessee's a great state. So in thinking about your decision tree for which state you'd sign up for, I would say if you live in one of these states that have an income tax deduction, that's your state. Verify that out on that website. There is an income tax deduction, but that's what I would go with. That state tax benefit, I think, is going to wipe out any fee differentials or anything else. Just note that there's not a huge differential in a lot of the states, like the offering, what you're getting, that sort of thing, but there is somewhat. But if your state has a deduction, I think that's your best bet, unless you're planning on moving soon out of state. Again, several states have an Able plan. If you live in one of these states that has an Able plan, there's not necessarily a benefit to investing in your resident state if there's not a state income tax deduction. So if your state has a plan and it's not one of these 7, I don't necessarily recommend investing in your home state. Unless you're just hoping that one day they're going to legislate an income tax deduction, which I wouldn't wait around for. I'm going to recommend Tennessee. So again, if you're out of state, you're not getting an income tax deduction, I think Tennessee, based on the no annual fee, low fees otherwise, and their investment options is my number one. If for some reason you really need a debit card, I really like Nebraska. Um, they also had low fees. They were about $40 a year to maintain, and then good fees on the funds. And they had some nice recommendations, like if you are investing for 5, 10, 15 years, that sort of thing. They kind of had funds that they would put you in. So I like the look of that. And then in addition, they do have a state tax deduction if you randomly ended up moving there. Other solid plans were these states here. Iowa has an income tax deduction, but again, if it's out of state for you, that doesn't matter. But these all seem to be maintained by the same third party provider, and so they all seem low fees, low comparable annual fee. They all had a debit card, and the fee on the debit card was waived if you maintained a pretty low balance. So I liked all of those. If for some reason you wanted to go to one of them, the other thing I would just consider is: are you planning to move to a state with a deduction? So if you are from one of these states, have family there, have job prospects there, have a pretty solid reason for believing you're going to move there, you might set up in one of those, because then when you get there, you'll get that deduction. But I wouldn't, I was the only one on this list otherwise. So if you're thinking you're going to move to one of these six, unless you're pretty sure, I wouldn't set up there as an out-of-stater unless you know you're going to end up there. So again, in your decision tree, if you live in one of these, pick it. If not, I'm going Tennessee. If you want a debit card, Nebraska, or you can think about one of these states. So once you've chosen a state plan, find the state website, either Google or this Able thing, and then get out there and figure out a phone number and call and just say, I'm finding autism isn't necessarily explicitly stated as kind of a rubber stamp eligibility for an Able account. I would be shocked if a child with autism did not qualify. So you're going to have to talk to them and figure out what proof you need if your child is not already on Social Security. Again, I would expect a lot of children with autism are not on a Social Security plan, just the nature of it. And that's something else I'm getting into. But if your child isn't already on one of these plans, you're going to have to call them and find out what proof they need to verify your child's eligibility so that they can have an Able account. So get through that process. I don't think it'll be hard. It may just be a doctor's note, or if your child's on Medicaid or Tefra, maybe that proof is good enough. Again, I haven't called myself because my state hasn't enacted their plan yet, and I'm waiting around to see if they're going to have an income tax deduction. And if not, I'm going with Tennessee. So then set everything on automatic. I strongly believe in not making periodic investments, but invest what you can every paycheck, every month, that sort of thing. And then periodically assess your account balance and what you're going to use those funds for. So are you using those funds in 20 years for transition to adulthood? Or are you going to use them in 10 for major expenses? Kind of figure out what you're using the funds for. I'm not giving investment advice here. I am recommending opening an Able account in certain situations. But as far as your time horizons, your risk tolerance, all that, that's up to you to figure out what you need that money for, what your goals are, and periodically assessing whether or not you're meeting those goals through your investment choices. In Able accounts, you can rebalance twice a year. That's every 6 months. So maybe every 6 months, you just kind of check your balance and see if you like what it's doing and if it's meeting the goals that you have for it. And then just understand the rules of disbursement. Understand how you can use your Able account to pay for things. If it's that debit card, or if you're reimbursing yourself, or if, all that. And again, if you're investing for the long haul, that's not something you need to figure out right now. And then if you do spend any money, save receipts. So you just want to prove that you use this for qualified expenses. In that, I'm going to save receipts for the bigger things, probably take a picture. If it's just small $4 stuff at a pharmacy, the pharmacy should have a record, that sort of thing. But you could be audited. I don't think audits are going to be heavy on these, and just use it for its intended purpose. And then you don't have anything to worry about, but keep a record of receipts, especially the really big ones. And so hit me up with any questions. I know that was a lot of information, but I tried to give you kind of a good decision tree there. And I'm happy to help you think through which state that you want to pick, or any other questions you have. Send me an email, hit me on social media. Would love to talk and hear what you have to say and your questions, that sort of thing. Thanks so much, and enjoy opening your Able account if you choose to do so.